Hi, it's Pete Cohen and welcome to another Coffee Cup Coaching session. This Coffee Cup Coaching today is all about why people are not engaged. In organizations all over the world, there is a massive issue going on where people are just really not giving the best of themselves. They're not engaged, they are distracted. And I believe what I'm going to be sharing with you today is information that everyone in organizations really needs to address and get their heads around. But you're not just going to be hearing from me today. You're also going to be hearing from Professor Chris Roebuck, who is a real expert in the field of leadership and has been consulting with organizations all over the world. So get ready for an informative but also inspiring Coffee Cup Coaching. Hi, it's Pete Cohen. Thank you for joining me. Today is perhaps a little bit less about coaching and more about sharing with you some very, very important information. In fact, if there was a news flash, I think this is a news flash which should be flashed all over the world in terms of, listen, people are not engaged. There is a real issue going on in the world today, especially in organizations where people are just not connected, not being engaged, and not giving the best of themselves. I've been really fortunate to work with businesses and people for many years, and I can see this problem is really getting worse. In my last Coffee Cup Coaching session, I was talking about the carrot and the stick, which is the way that most people have been motivated in life. You know, if you do this, you'll get the carrot, you'll get a reward. If you don't do this, well, you might not have a job and you might realize that you're not good enough. And we now know that that really isn't the best way to get the most out of people, for really people to be truly engaged. And I want to share with you over the next few minutes really the whole magnitude of the problem and perhaps give you some ideas of what actually can be done about this. But you're not only just going to be hearing from me, I'd really like you to take 6.5 minutes of your time to listen to Professor Chris Roebuck. I recently gave a keynote presentation and he was also one of the keynote speakers there. And my mouth was open for most of the presentation. My jaw had just dropped. I was like, are you serious? Are you serious to some of the things that he was saying? That between 25 to 30% of people who work in organizations are engaged? That 70% of people aren't? This whole concept around discretionary effort, which is where people are only just putting in the minimum effort just to get by. Organizations could be so much more successful, so much more profitable, so much more productive when people are engaged. And I want to look at this from a number of different aspects. We now know that people are not really incentivized when tasks involved cognitive function and creativity, that being rewarded does not motivate. In some cases, it can actually demotivate. We know that the difference that really makes the difference is leaders giving people what they really need and what they really want. And research has shown this, and again, Chris Roebuck really emphasizes this, that it's the simple things that if we can make people feel listened to, if we can value their opinions, if we can also give them a big picture of where they're going so they can see their part in where the organization is going, then we have a chance to get these people more engaged. We live in a world that is so fragmented, so there's so much distraction. And I read an alarming statistic that it's estimated that only between 3 minutes and 15 minutes of every working day are people genuinely engaged in something. The rest of the time they're dealing with distraction of people asking them to do things, but also in their own mind, finding it very, very hard to be engaged. And this is why we need to teach people and coach people in developing strong minds, in developing confidence in themselves and their ability, to develop willpower, which is the science of self-control. So as far as what leaders can do, well, of course they can make people feel more appreciated and listen to them and develop compelling visions of where the business is going. But as far as coaching people within organizations to develop strong and powerful minds for them to have resilience, well, that's where organizations need to possibly look outside of what they're doing. Even just to stop for a moment and really look at what's going on. I made a video not long ago all about institutional blindness, that so many institutions are really blind to what is going on and how do the people in our business genuinely feel. And I admire anyone that really wants to look at what's going on. Look, this was published not long ago, and this was something when I literally read it so many times because I couldn't believe what I was reading. Great Workplaces. This is something that's published by the Guardian newspaper. And some of the statistics in here are just crazy. Let's just check this out. It says the UK is ranked 18th out of 20 countries in levels of employee engagement. I mean, that's just crazy. Why? It's estimated that poor mental health is costing the UK economy between 74 billion and 94 billion per year. So I think sometimes when we know there's a problem, we don't often want to address the problem. But if we do address it, we can turn things around. We can really turn things around and make a big difference. See, the role of a leader is like a coach. A coach is about taking people from A to B. A leader is about taking people and an organization from A to B, and B being a better place. And some of the interventions that we use with organizations is really helping people to go to work on themselves. So we know that the carrot and the stick doesn't really work, but what the science is really showing is that people want to feel that they have some control, they have a part to play. It's called autonomy, that they're self-directing their life and have a part to play in directing the direction of the business. They also want to get better at things. Mastery is so important, and one of the reasons people are just not engaged is because they're bored. They're lost in the mundaneness of what they're doing. They don't see the big picture in what they're doing. What we need to do in organizations is give people the opportunity to get better at things. And all of those things might not necessarily relate specifically to their work. If we can help people get better at feeling confident about who they are personally and professionally, if we can help them to develop the willpower to be more engaged in their work, but the willpower to perhaps exercise better, to eat better, so that they are growing as a human being. Every human being has a desire and a capacity to grow, just like a business. And I believe this is what organizations really need to start paying attention to, is helping people grow, get better. But listen, don't just listen to me. Take 6.5 minutes of your time to listen to the interview that I did with Professor Chris Roebuck, which is for an up-and-coming book that we have coming out called Inspirators, which is where I have detailing some of the work that I've done with some of the top CEOs and MDs around the world, with coaching them and finding out what is it that makes the difference in terms of leadership. Listen, this perhaps today is less about coaching, but more about all of us just kind of waking up to what is really going on and realizing, look, we can do something about this. We can be the difference that makes the difference. But the challenge really is to be able to open up and be honest with what's going on, to be able to step back and kind of see the playing field and think, hang on, we've got to stop for a moment here. Because look, 20 to 30% of initiatives that are launched in organizations are seen through to the end. And if you're going to choose to do something like this in your business, you want it to succeed. It needs to be more than just an initiative. It needs to be a way of moving through the world, helping the business grow, helping the people grow in your business. This is something that we are very proud of, the work that we're doing, and we would be delighted to share with you the difference it really can make in helping people go the extra mile and be more engaged. Thanks for watching this episode of Coffee Cup Coaching. Watch that video with Professor Chris Roebuck, and we will see you next time. Take care and have a happy, beautiful day.
Okay, if you take ballpark figures, because I was on the sort of one of the expert panels on the Engage for Success report that David McLeod and Nita Clark put together for BIS. And it's not just UK, it's pretty consistent across the world. You can probably say that in most organisations, maximum 25 to 30% of people are engaged. And let's be clear about what engagement means. Okay. There's something called discretionary effort. What discretionary effort is, it's effort that an employee can give if they want to. Now, in most situations, an employee can, within a normal performance management system, come up as performing satisfactorily, but still yet be withholding up to 30% effort. So, i.e., they're doing the job, but they're not giving their best. But because they're doing the job and satisfactory, the organisation cannot tell that they're not giving that 30% extra effort. And if you think about it, 30% is a massive improvement in performance. So the engagement thing focuses on what percentage do we think are actually giving that extra 30%.
Yeah.
That's why the power of leadership is so great, because if leaders can get people to give their best, we're talking about an increase in 60% of people by up to 30% effort.
And you've seen that yourself personally?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you've seen it from the other studies that have been done?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
how much of that do you think is down to people at the top of organizations genuinely engaging with people and finding out what makes them tick and taking an interest in them?
Totally. It's totally that. And from personal experience, it happens. If you look at all the data, you know, to anyone watching this, there is no dispute now about the facts. If you engage people, you will get better performance, significantly better performance. And if you are a commercial organisation, you will make more money. Fact. An ex-finance director of a major telecoms company that I work with, when we'd worked through all this, effectively said, the comment was, look, this is a license to make money. We should have been doing this for years. If we look at it from the purely financial perspective, and I speak to many investment analysts in the city and finance directors, the bottom line on this is, if leaders do simple things day to day that inspire people to give their best, which we know cost no money, showing you care, asking for ideas, showing people the big picture, blah, 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 it can put up to 10%, if not more, on bottom line. So there is no argument about whether this works or not. It does work. It is a fact. What is amazing is that organisations are not signing up to this in droves, because, to be perfectly blunt, what's going to happen is, and talking to the Chartered Securities Institute in the city, what's going to happen is investors are going to get wind of this, and they're going to say, okay, so how many of our people are engaged? And when they see the figures, and when they fully understand what's going on, they're going to be saying, well, why is it this low? Because we know that if you can increase the number of people who are engaged, it will add money to the bottom line. And as we are investors, we expect you to be optimizing the bottom line.
So do you think that the biggest challenge in all of that is just organizations actually giving it a go? Because it isn't so much about an initiative, it's more about a drive to culturally bring about a fundamental way in people, the way people engage with each other.
Absolutely. But what is weird is, you see, it's a catch-22, it's a vicious circle. Organisations are so distracted by what they're currently doing, they cannot break the vicious circle they're in. And breaking the vicious circle is to say, hang on, wait a minute, only 30% of initiatives ever work properly. We only have 25% of people who are engaged. And in that situation, going back to what I've said about what underpins this is some basic skills amongst leaders around time management, prioritization, delegation, feedback, and communication. Because if leaders in organizations cannot manage a simple task effectively, they are going to be firefighting and focusing purely on the task. If they focus purely on the task, people are going to get the feeling that they don't care about them, and they're not going to have time to ask people for ideas. They're not going to have time to explain how them, because they're going to be firefighting. So the criticality of this is not that it's culturally sensitive, not that it's complex, not that it's difficult. It's just that organizations are trapped in their own vicious circle. But what has to happen is, to break that vicious circle, somebody has to say, actually, you don't need to think of leadership in a complicated way. You don't need to do complicated stuff because you don't have time. You just have to do simple, practical stuff on a day-to-day basis that you are already doing most of anyway. You do more of it and you do it better, and that will pull you out of the vicious circle.